Picture this for a second. You take the former Prime Minister of India and the former Prime Minister of Pakistan. You strip away the flags, the podiums, the security details, the tailored suits.
Right, just strip all the context away.
Yeah, you put them in plain t-shirts and jeans, and you stand them side by side in a room full of strangers who have absolutely no context for who these two men are. What happens?
Well, those strangers wouldn't even guess they belong to two different, heavily armed, fiercely rival nations.
Exactly. They would look at their features, listen to their cadence, and just assume they were two guys from the exact same region.
Maybe even the same extended family, honestly. It's a profound image, isn't it? Because it completely shatters this towering, heavily fortified wall of us versus them.
It really does. And welcome to today's deep dive. Pull up a chair, because today we are taking the labels you use to define yourself.
Yeah, your nationality, your political party, religion, your job title, all of it.
All of it. We are basically setting those labels on fire to see what is actually left in the ashes. We're exploring a deeply fascinating series of personal philosophical notes by a thinker named Hashir.
Titled The Illusion of Identity and the Search for Peace.
Right, and the mission here today is to deconstruct these labels to uncover the fundamental human baseline hiding underneath all that noise.
Because, this isn't just an exercise in being provocative or tearing things down. The ultimate goal of this source text is understanding how peeling back these layers might actually be the only true path to inner peace.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the ideas here don't start in the clouds, they start on the ground, with a very specific, localized thought experiment. Let's imagine you are standing in the state of Kerala in India.
Kerala is a brilliant starting point for this analysis. It's an incredibly dense, vibrant society. Everyone there shares the exact same language, Malayalam.
Right, same language, same geographical climate, same local history.
But internally, the community is heavily partitioned by religious identity. You have Hindus, Christians, Muslims, and atheists all sharing the same physical space.
Living right on top of each other, basically.
Exactly, but operating in these distinct silos, carrying these invisible yet fiercely defended tribal boundaries.
So here is the thought experiment for you, the listener. Imagine you go to sleep tonight in Kerala, and overnight, like a magical eraser sweeps across the state.
It just wipes it all clean.
Yeah, it wipes away every single religious label. It removed the crescents, the crosses, the saffron colors.
Temples, mosques, and churches just lose all their identifying markers.
Right. You wake up the next morning, step outside, and look around. What actually changes about how people behave?
The shocking, undeniable answer is absolutely nothing. The mechanics of daily human life just continue without a single hiccup.
They're eating at the exact same restaurants, hanging out in the exact same parks, walking through the same malls.
Go to the exact same movies, doing the same business transactions at the market.
The rhythm of survival and leisure is identical. And this boils down to an equation presented in these notes that I just cannot stop thinking about.
Oh, the equation of sameness.
Yes. Life minus religious symbols equals makes everyone the same.
It's an incredibly stark piece of arithmetic because it forces us to confront the fact that the differences we obsess over are largely manufactured.
Because we're told constantly that there is this massive, unbridgeable gulf between us and our neighbors who, pray differently or vote differently.
Right, but if the fundamental mechanics of our daily lives are identical, where is that gulf coming from? The author points directly at the media and at institutional narratives for engineering that perception of difference.
The media tells you the person across the street is fundamentally other.
Exactly. But the reality of your daily routine proves they are practically a clone of you.
Okay, let me give you an analogy. It makes me think of being a diehard fan of a sports team. Think about the last time you were at a rivalry game.
Oh, that's a perfect modern equivalent.
Right. You have these two massive groups of people who absolutely despise each other for 3 hours. They hurl insults. They feel this intense tribal animosity.
But strip away the colored jerseys, wash off the face paint, and what are you actually looking at?
Just thousands of identical human beings eating the exact same hot dogs, drinking the exact same beer, and screaming at a patch of grass.
The jerseys doing all the heavy lifting there. The human underneath is totally interchangeable.
But wait, let me push back on this for a second, because when we say we are all exactly the same, that tends to rub people the wrong way.
Sure, it can feel dismissive of individuality.
Yeah, surely we have some differences, right? Human beings are incredibly diverse. I have friends who are completely different from me. We can't just be a monolith.
What's fascinating here is that Acknowledging our fundamental sameness doesn't require erasing human individuality. The source definitely caveats this. Of course, people have varied personal interests.
Okay, so the individual flavor is real.
It is real. You might be a strict vegan, while your neighbor is a devoted carnivore. You might love obscure jazz, while someone else listens to Tap 40 pop.
Right, we have different hobbies, different tastes.
Exactly. But here's the crucial distinction. Those are lifestyle quirks. They are personal preferences.
Nobody goes to war over a preference for acoustic guitar.
Precisely. Being a vegan doesn't create the kind of deep existential us versus them division that leads to historical conflict. The massive divides, the ones that make us view another human being as an enemy, those are the illusions.
So on the fundamental level of what drives us and what scares us, the sameness is overwhelming.
Overwhelmingly so, yes.
Which makes total sense when you look at it locally. But if this illusion of difference is powerful enough to divide neighbors in Kerala, what happens when you weaponize that illusion with national borders and military budgets?
Well, then you scale up the illusion to a geopolitical level, and the notes delve right into this, specifically looking at the historical tension between India and Pakistan.
Here is where it gets really interesting. Because if you grow up in India, the cultural narrative is inescapable. Pakistan is enemy number one.
And that narrative isn't just in political speeches. It's woven into the fabric of the society.
Oh, totally. It's the plot of massive Bollywood blockbusters. It is the underlying electric tension in every single cricket match they play against each other.
It is a defining boundary of national identity. You know who you are because you know who you are against.
But then the source introduces an environmental equalizer. What actually happens to these deeply entrenched enemies when they leave that specific geographical pressure cooker?
When individuals from India and Pakistan migrate to a place like the Middle East, say Dubai or Doha, a profound shift occurs. That monumental historic difference, it just evaporates.
It vanishes because suddenly they are outside the echo chamber.
Exactly. When you look at an Indian expat and a Pakistani expat side by side in the Middle East, what do you see? They are genetically, culturally, and stylistically identical.
They look the same. They often speak a language that is mutually intelligible. They gravitate toward the same food.
They experience the same exact struggles of living abroad.
Right. When they are a minority in a new environment, they suddenly realize they have way more in common with each other than with anyone else in the room.
The environment forces the breakdown of the illusion. It proves that the geographical boundary, that literal line drawn on a map, was the only thing holding the animosity together.
Which brings us right back to the image you opened with. The two prime ministers standing side by side.
Entirely indistinguishable to an outsider.
So if we look exactly the same and we naturally gravitate toward the same behaviors when we leave our home turf, why are we even fighting? I mean, seriously, why do these borders even exist in the first place?
That is the profound, almost bewildered question that emerges from this analysis. Why should there be another country?
The logical foundation for the separation just doesn't exist.
It doesn't. When you examine the media manipulation we discussed regarding local neighborhoods, and you amplify it by a factor of 1,000,000, you see the exact same mechanism powering nationalistic propaganda.
So borders are basically as much of a psychological construct as the religious symbols we wiped away in Kerala.
Lines drawn on a map, backed by an incredibly well-funded, generation-spanning marketing campaign.
It's just spectacular branding for real estate. But this brings up a darker question. If there is no logical, biological, or lifestyle reason to fight, why do human beings consistently do this?
Why do we keep inventing these groups?
Yeah. Why do we expend so much energy building walls if they aren't real?
To answer that, we have to transition away from politics and dive straight into human psychology. We have a look at the ego.
Okay, what does the source say about that?
The psychological assessment here is incredibly blunt. Humans create these massive in-groups and out-groups for one primary reason: to feel better about themselves.
So it all comes down to a superiority complex.
Entirely. Think about the underlying mechanism of superiority. In order for you to feel superior, you inherently require someone else to be inferior.
Right. If everyone is exactly the same, if there is no worse group to compare yourself to, that sameness is actually deeply threatening to the human ego.
Exactly. The ego demands a hierarchy to validate its own existence. The notes have a great analogy regarding a corporate CEO for this.
Let's talk about that CEO analogy. Why is someone motivated to climb the ladder, work 80 hours a week, and become a CEO?
Because that specific title, that corner office, makes them higher up than their staff. The title carries the weight of superiority.
But imagine if the entire staff had the exact same power, the exact same pay, the exact same perks. If the staff were on an entirely equal level, the motivation to be the CEO vanishes completely.
It requires a bottom for there to be a top. And we apply this exact same psychological framework to how we consume the narratives of our lives.
Like with movies, right?
Oh, absolutely. Whenever you sit down to watch a film, you almost universally side with the hero. Why? Because the hero represents us.
Right. The hero is the idealized version of our tribe. Absolutely nobody wants to identify with the villain.
Because the villain is the other who does bad things, makes the wrong choices, and inevitably gets defeated in the end.
We automatically, subconsciously cast ourselves as the good guys. And it's wild when you see this applied to how we consume something as sacred as religious texts.
The notes use the Quran as an example here, and it's fascinating because it's a self-critique from within that community.
Yeah, when people read scripture, they subconsciously read themselves into the role of the righteous believers, and they cast everyone else in the world as the misguided villains.
Simply because they follow rules, like, not drinking alcohol. That superficial justification gives them immense spiritual superiority.
But hold on, isn't that just human nature? I mean, isn't it completely natural to want to be the hero of your own story?
Sure, from an evolutionary standpoint, protecting your tribe was a basic survival mechanism.
Right, so is this need to feel better inherently malicious, or is it just an ancient piece of our mental hardware that goes terribly wrong when we apply it to massive groups globally?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it almost doesn't matter if it's a natural evolutionary instinct. What matters is that in the modern world, it is a devastating trap.
Because this psychological need for superiority creates a powerful, intoxicating illusion of righteousness.
Exactly. It makes us think we are morally elevated simply because we were born into a certain group. And that illusion completely blinds us to the shared humanity of everyone else.
Which leads us directly to what might be the most challenging part of this entire deep dive, the spiritual warning.
Yes, this is where it gets very introspective.
Because if our group labels are just psychological ego boosts and our national borders are just illusions maintained by propaganda, then our perceived spiritual superiority is completely, utterly hollow.
The notes tackle this head-on, focusing intensely on the concept of inherited religion. There's a powerful argument here that simply having the title Muslim or Christian or Hindu just because your parents had it is meaningless.
It is an inherited label, not an earned truth.
And relying on that label provides absolutely no guarantee of being saved or favored or enlightened.
The warning is so clear there is no guarantee. Because when you look past the labels and observe the actual performative acts of religion, we are basically doing the exact same things as every other group on Earth.
Right. Across different religions, everyone prays in some form, everyone fasts or sacrifices in some way, everyone participates in charity.
The physical mechanisms of devotion are universal.
And because everyone is performing these same actions, we are forced to confront a very humbling reality. We have absolutely no idea whose prayers God or the universe actually prefers.
A person might assume their specific prayer is the correct one purely because of the label attached to their building.
But the notes suggest the divine might actually prefer the quiet, sincere prayers of the supposed others. We don't hold the scorecard.
So what does this all mean for us? If everyone across the world is checking the exact same religious boxes, what actually makes a person stand out?
That's a great question.
If the labels are gone, the flags are burned, and the rituals are universal, how do we strive for what the notes call an award from God? What is the actual metric?
This raises an important question, and to answer it, the notes turn to a specific, deeply profound definition of a true believer found in the Quran.
Right, a believer isn't defined by the geographic label they inherited.
No, and they aren't defined by the outward rituals they perform for others to see either. A true believer is defined internally as someone whose heart trembles when they remember God.
The trembling heart. Think about the mechanics of that for a second. You can fake a prayer. You can fake a fast. You can donate money just to get your name on a plaque to boost your ego.
But you cannot fake a visceral, internal trembling of the heart.
It is a closed-loop system between you and whatever you believe is out there. And the introspection from the author here is incredibly raw. They ask, does our heart tremble? I am doubtful if we really believe in God or not.
It is a total unmasking of performative identity. It forcefully shifts the focus away from the external world where we judge others and turns it entirely to the internal world where we can only judge ourselves.
And this leads to a rather radical, unshakable conclusion from the source. In the modern context, beneath the superficial labels, there is absolutely no difference between a Muslim and a non-Muslim.
They are so fundamentally the same in their daily lives, their struggles, and their performative actions that they could literally just share a single group name.
The dividing line we spend trillions of dollars defending simply does not exist where we think it does.
And here's the kicker. The notes argue that this ultimate truth, the reality that our labels and nationalities were always an illusion, will only be fully realized after death.
Death is the great equalizer that finally strips away the ego.
Exactly. It reveals the fundamental sameness.
But that leaves you and me with a massive problem right now. Because we aren't dead yet.
Hopefully not anytime soon.
Yeah, hopefully not. So if everything we use to define ourselves, our politics, our borders, our tribal affiliations is an illusion, and we won't fully grasp that until the end of the line, how the hell are we supposed to live today?
How do you navigate a world obsessed with labels without losing your mind?
Exactly.
This is where we shift from deconstruction to the actual search for peace. Because you can't just tear everything down and live in the rubble. You need a way forward.
Right, you need a blueprint.
The notes cite a specific, beautiful passage from the Quran, Surah Al-Fajr. It translates to, "But to the righteous, God will say, O soul at peace, return to your Lord well-pleased, well-pleasing."
A soul at peace. It really stops you in your tracks. Because when are we ever truly at peace?
Rarely, if ever.
Think about your average Tuesday. We spend our entire lives violently defending our labels, arguing over imaginary borders on the internet, desperately trying to prove that we are the hero and our neighbor is the villain.
We think life is all about maintaining us and feeding our ego's need to be superior.
But that endless cycle of ego maintenance and tribal division is exactly the mechanism that destroys peace. It is exhausting.
The ultimate takeaway from this philosophy is a simple yet incredibly difficult directive. To have peace inside us, we must first be peaceful to those around us.
You cannot maintain the illusion of superiority and experience peace at the exact same time. The two states are mutually exclusive.
To bring this all home, I want to bring up the closing image from these notes because it is so perfectly unexpected.
Oh, I love this part.
The ultimate example of a soul at peace given here isn't a monk or a saint or a billionaire CEO. It's a pigeon.
A pigeon, the ultimate symbol of ordinary existence.
Exactly.
Think about the life of a pigeon for a second, for you listening. A pigeon is entirely unburdened by labels. It isn't watching a 24-hour news cycle, letting media narratives spike its cortisol levels over which flock of birds is enemy number one.
It isn't sitting on a ledge trying to prove it's spiritually or genetically superior to the sparrows.
It isn't guarding an invisible border in the sky. It just exists. It flies, it eats, it lives, completely unbothered by the exhausting, endless information overload of us versus them that we drown ourselves in every single day.
It is the living, breathing embodiment of an existence completely free from the illusion of identity.
And maybe that pigeon-like tranquility is exactly what we should be striving for, escaping the noise of the labels. Which brings me to a final thought I want to leave you with today.
Something to mull over.
Exactly. The premise here is that after death, we will all finally realize the truth, that our earthly labels meant absolutely nothing. We will see that the game was rigged by our own egos. But what if you didn't wait until the end?
What if you could bypass the waiting?
Yeah. Imagine this. What if you woke up tomorrow morning with total amnesia regarding your labels? You don't know your nationality, you don't know your political party, you have no memory of your religious affiliation.
A completely blank slate.
Without those inherited boundaries telling you who your enemies are supposed to be, who is the very first person in your life you would finally be able to forgive?